So the second row operation, we can see like if we subtract the first row from the third row. So here we have on and here we have on, also on and also on here. If we subtract the first row from the third row, so we can still get a 0, and also here we can still get a 0, but you need to look up where we need to get 0. We need to get 0 here. Let me star mark them. Okay, we need to get 0 here, right? And also we need to get 0 here because our pivot point is here and there is another pivot point. Oh sorry, not this one. Yeah, so there is one pivot point and there is another pivot point. Okay, so somehow we just make we don't want 0 here, but for the procedure here we will get 0, but again we will get back 1 here. Okay, so you don't need to worry too much. So for example, just we look up the on the first column, because here we have on and here also we have on. So we subtract the first row from the third row. That means I have written here R3 minus R1. Okay, and we have to substitute the result to row 3 because we want this number. We want this number as 0 because this is our pivot point, and all the entries below this pivot point, they must be equal to 0, right? Okay, so this is the row operation. So R3 minus R1, that is on minus 1, that is 0. 2 minus minus 1, that is 3. On minus 1, that is 0. 0 minus 1, that is minus 1. 0 minus 0, that is 0. And on minus 0, that is 1. Okay. Remy, is it clear? James?
Yeah.
Okay. So now let's see what can we do here. Okay. So we also want 0 here, right? Because this is our first pivot point. This is our second pivot point. We also want 0 here. That's why we just can we can just add the first row with the second row. That's why I have written here R1 plus R2. We add the first row with the second row. Yeah, and then we substitute the value to row 1 because we want here 0. So this entry, it is in our row 1, right? So do this thing. On plus 0, that is going to be 1. Minus 1 plus 1, 0. 1 plus 1, 2. Okay, so this way. 1 plus 1, 2. Yeah, and the next row operation. So again, look at here, and we want 0 here, right? Because this is our second pivot point. So above the second pivot point we have 0, but below the pivot point we don't have 0. That's why we want 0 here. So if I somehow multiply 3 with the second row, that means 3 multiply 1. So we get here. So 3 multiply the second row, that will be 3, right? And then we substitute the second row from the third row. So this way. So we multiply the second row. 3 multiply 0 is 0. 3 multiply 1 is 3. And 3 multiply 1 is 3. So 3 minus 3, that is going to be 0. So we substitute the value to the third row because we want this entry as 0. That's why we substitute the value at the third row. That means we write down the result in the third row. So 3 minus 3, that is going to be 0. And 0 minus 3, that is going to be minus 3. Minus 1, minus 3. Yeah, it will be 3, 3, and 0. So minus 4, 0 minus 3, that will be minus 3. and on minus 0, that will be 1. So we have come a long way, right? Now we just need, we have to make this minus 3 as 1, and we have to make this 2 as 0, right? Then we are done. Okay, so and then also we have to make this 1 as 0. So if we now focus on the third column, then we can possibly get the answer. So to make this minus 3 as 1, we just divide the third row by minus 3, okay? So then we get on here, okay? So this is what we wanted. Our first pivot point, second pivot point, and the third pivot point, okay?
Yeah.
So you don't need to worry too much, like just do the procedure and just think like how can we make all of this entry as as the main diagonal,
Identity.
and all the entries above,
Yeah.
below, and above those main diagonal as 0, or those pivot points as 0. So now you can just multiply. Okay, so we want 0 here, right? That's why we multiply 2 with the third row. You see here, we multiply 2 with the third row, and then we substitute the third row from the first row. Sorry, we subtract the third row from the first row. So let me write down here. So 2 multiply 0 is 0, 0. 2 multiply 1 is 2. This will be 8 by 3. Okay, 8 by 3. It will be 2, and it will be minus 2 by 3, okay? So now just substitute the third row from the first row. On minus 0, okay. On minus 0, that is going to be, okay, so we put the value to the first row. On minus 0, that is 1, and 0 minus 0, 0. 2 minus 2, that is 0. So this way, okay, 2 minus 8 by 3, it will be minus 2 by 3. So this way you do the rest. And we are almost at the end, right? So we also want this entry as 0. Sorry, not this one. We also want this one, okay? We also want this entry as 0 because this is our main diagonal. So we want this entry as 0. That's why do this row operation. R2 minus R3, substitute the result to R2. So 0 minus 0, that is going to be 0. 0 minus 1, that is also going to be sorry. You see here, if we do this way, 0 minus 1, I mean R3 minus R2, then we get for 0 minus 1, that is going to be minus 1, right?
Yeah.
So that's why we don't do R3 minus R2. Instead, we do R2 minus R3, okay? Jen, can you understand? So that's why we do here R2 minus R3, okay?
Yeah.
We could do like R3 minus R2, but if we could do that, we could get like minus 1 here. Yes, that's why we don't go that way. So we do R2 minus R3. So 0 minus 0, that is 0. On minus 0, 1. On minus 1, that is 0. And on minus 4 by 3, it will be
Yeah, I got it.
yeah, it will be 4 by 3. On minus 4 by 3. So it will be,
So our identity matrix become like this, and this is our answer.
just a moment. Yeah, so our identity matrix, it will be at the right part, okay? It will be at the right part. So you see here this one, this part. So this part will be our identity matrix at the right part, okay? So sorry. This part will be our inverse matrix. Then this part right here, it will be our inverse matrix. Okay. So you see here, I have written this and answer here.
Yeah, got it.
So on minus 4 by 3, it was minus 1 by 3. Okay. So you see here, we have written minus 1 by 3 here on the second row. Okay, on the second row. Yeah. So this was the second question. And the third question, just okay, I am not going to explain the full part. I am just going to explain
Oh,
all those part within 2 minutes. Okay, just within 2 minutes. I think you can understand. So
I think
if you
I
look,
got.
here, we have some kind of coefficient, right? Coefficient of x. So 1, 3, and 2. Coefficient of x2, that is 2, 6, 4. And coefficient of x3, that is 1, minus 1, 1. And coefficient
Mhm.
of x4, that is minus 1, minus 3, and minus 5. And our right part, the constant value is 0, 0, 0. So
Mhm.
to solve this, we need to write down the augmented matrix. Okay. So you see, we have just taken the
We did
coefficient.
the equations. Yeah.
Yeah, we just have taken the coefficient, and on the right side
Mhm.
we have taken the I mean the constant value. Okay. So all the constant they are
Oh.
0. All the constant they are
Mhm.
0. That's why we can skip this part. Okay, we can skip this part. But if there is any constant, like if there is a 2, so we cannot skip this part. But
Yeah.
if all the entries are 0, then we can skip this part. Okay. So now do the row operation and make this augmented matrix into a RREF. Okay, the same way.
Yeah.
Oh, no, sorry, no RREF, but you can only make them as REF. Okay, REF is okay. I mean reduced S-line form. So what do I mean by REF? Just see the main diagonal. Okay. Oh no. Oh yeah. Sorry. RREF. Sorry, RREF. You have to convert this matrix into a RREF. Okay. So
Hmm.
let me show you at the last part here. This part here.
Mhm.
This is our main pivot point, right? And all the
Yeah.
entries
Oh.
below this pivot point is 0. Okay.
Mhm.
So we don't calculate this too, because we got our first pivot point on the first row. So we don't need to think of
Yeah.
these two. Okay. So let's go here.
Mhm.
The second row. Our pivot point is here. So all the entries above and below are 0.
Yeah.
And the third
Mhm.
row, our pivot point is here. So all the entries above and below is 0. So we can see,
Yeah.
we can say that this part, this is not an identity matrix, but this is RREF, right?
Mhm. Yeah. Got it.
Yeah. So now this is our x1, this is x2, x3, x4. So now just give back those coefficient with the variable. Okay. So on multiply x1, that will be x1. 2 multiply x2, that will be x2 x2. Okay. Just give the coefficient back. So you get this three equation: 1, 2, 3. Okay. On multiply x3, that will be x3 and equal to 0, right? X3 equal to 0. On multiply x4,
Oh.
yeah, x4 equals 0. You just give those coefficient back. Okay.
Mhm.
So we express leading variable in terms of free variable. Okay. So now we need to express leading variable in terms of free variable. So what do I mean by free variable? Okay. So So you see here, this two right here. This one is not
Mm-hmm.
our. This one is not our pivot point, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So this one is called free variable. Okay. So the entry that is not
Oh.
the entry that is not pivot point, that is a free variable. So
Oh. Okay.
so here is x1. So you just take this free variable on the right side, okay, and
Yeah.
you keep the pivot point or the leading variable on the left side. So leading variable, they are called pivot point, okay. So
Mm-hmm.
our Laoshi used to call it like the first leading one. You remember? Our Laoshi used
Mm-hmm.
to call it like the first leading one, and I call it as pivot point. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So though you can just say both. Okay, it's up to you. Like both are okay. So this is the answer. I mean the x1 equal to minus 2
Mm-hmm.
x2, and x2 is equal x2 is equal x2, because because we don't have any x2 here, right? For x2,
Yeah.
x2, I mean the x2 is not okay. I'm not sure why. Okay, so we let you can follow this part, like the Laoshi, the part,
Yeah.
the way our Laoshi solved. So we, for example, we take the we let our free variable as t, okay, like our free
Mm-hmm.
variable x2 is equal to t, and then x1 becomes minus 2t, right? Replace the
Yeah.
value here.
Okay. Get it.
Yeah, replace the value here, okay. T, x1 becomes minus 2t, and x2
Mm-hmm.
we let it x2 equal to t, okay, right? So x3 will be 0 and x4 will be also 0. So this is our solution set, okay. And then
Okay.
you can
Thank
also
you very
write them.
much, Amar.
You can also write them in the I mean in the matrix form. Is this matrix form? Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
you can also write them in this form, okay, like this way.
Yeah.
So I think that's all for today.
Thank you very much, Amar.
So
And
next,
see you, Amar, also.
yeah. So next day we maybe the upcoming days we will talk about lecture 9 and so on. Okay. I'm sorry for my explanation today because 我很累了，今天我很累，所以我的 mathematics 不好。So 再见，明天见。
Right.
It's okay, bro. It's okay, bro. I will send the recordings. Okay, so you can see them.
Thank you very much,
Bye bye,
Amar. Have a
everyone.
good night.
Okay, Jajan, good night.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye bye, Ian. Structure.